You're welcome to Contemplations, coming to you live from the studios of MTA International in the UK. On this week's edition of the program, we look at a very important issue, that is the role of women in Islam. But before we set the ball rolling, let's watch a short video about the subject.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Maria Qureshi and I'm an MSc Research Methods in Psychology student at UCL. I feel that education for a Muslim woman is very empowering. I feel that I can make a positive contribution to my field of study, and that through all the skills that I gain, I can help other women in my community understand mental health issues much better.
In practice, we find that a lot of knowledge has been conveyed through the wives of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. We can see that a lot of hadiths, the sayings of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, they were narrated quoting the words of some of the wives of the Holy Prophet ﷺ.
I'm Miriam. I'm studying medicine at Barts in the London Medical School. I've wanted to do medicine from quite a young age, as I found that it's quite a fascinating subject. As a Muslim woman, I want to help humanity. If we look back on the history of Islam, we see the example of Hazrat Aisha Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anha, who was a very learned woman. In fact, many of the hadiths that we have today are quoted by her. As a Muslim woman of today, it's important to pick up that mantle from where she left it, and for us to also strive to be learned and to seek an education.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Alia Dean. I study religion in the contemporary world here at King's College London. I chose this degree because I've always been very interested in religions, and different religions fascinate me. I think it's important for Muslim women to be educated because it opens up their minds and lets them pass it on to future generations.
My guest for today's program is the Amir and missionary in charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission in Ghana, Maulvi Dr. Wahab Adamovi. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I also have with me a young woman, Hiba Araba Said, who is a research assistant of the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research in Ghana. Hiba, you're welcome.
Thank you, Ibrahim.
Ms. Abem, let me begin with you. It would have been unheard of, or let me say, it's still unheard of in some countries or societies, you know, for a man and the woman to be sitting close to each other. In certain Muslim societies, it's described as haram. Why is it so?
So long as the lady is properly clad, you know, covered fully, she could be close to a man, really. There's nothing wrong with it in Islam. And in the religion of Islam, a woman has a very, very special place. Somebody says that it's like the two tires of a bicycle. You know, we have a man and we have a woman. And indeed, women outnumber men in many, many countries of the world. So you simply cannot relegate women to the background. And the religion of Islam stresses that fact, that it is important that all the basic rights of women accorded them, the right to life, the right to education, the right to dignity. And all those are very clearly marked out both in the Holy Quran and in the practice of the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
But Amisa, why has this perception of, let me call it, separation, become so entrenched in the psyches of most Muslim societies that a man and a woman, even talking, is considered an abomination?
Well, you see, the truth is people are concerned about moral sanity, that in a society we must try to preserve the sanctity of life, and in that we also have the moral obligation to ensure that we do not do things that are socially and even culturally unacceptable, like the sort of things that go on between boys and girls and between men and women. And I think this is why people make sure that we do not have free intermixing of the sexes, which might result in unnecessary contact that can bring about later on difficulties. So that is why I was saying that in the religion of Islam, the basic rights are accorded. For instance, before the religion of Islam, if any woman, what I might call girl child, was born to any family, there was general lamentation. People would be wailing and crying. They are unhappy because they would have wished it was a boy. And it happens even in modern day life. In certain countries, people would prefer boys to girls. And when a girl is born, they start to wail. And the Holy Quran makes it very, very clear that before the religion of Islam, if a baby girl was born, then there was this wailing and crying because they think that it is a man who must protect the family. It is a man who, in the case of aggression against the family, you should be able to stand up and protect the family. A woman might not be able to do that. So that was one of the reasons. Today, they have other reasons. But the religion of Islam came to abolish that and said, no, they are equal. If you read the Holy Quran, there are so many verses that would say that the man and the woman have the same rights.
Right. Hey, but let me turn to you now. So now the perception that women should naturally play second fiddle to men, it seems to be so strong in most societies. I don't know whether you have experienced some of this before, but how do you feel as a woman when you realize that this perception is eating into the social fabric of society?
Ibrahim, I must say that it's really heartbreaking, when we hear that Muslim women are treated as second-class citizens, because like Amir explained, it is not true. The Islamic teachings clearly say that the man and the woman are spiritually equal. It just gives us different responsibilities, functional differences when it comes to responsibilities. But the problem is that there are certain cultures in Ghana where women are maltreated, treated almost like slaves. Unfortunately, you find a number of Muslims among these cultures in Ghana. And so people kind of confuse these cultural practices with Islamic teachings. And it's important we make a distinction between these two, because Islam does not say we should maltreat women. Islam does not say we should force girls into marriages. No, these are not Islamic teachings. The fact that a particular group of people are doing it and most of them are Muslims does not mean that, that's what the Holy Quran said.
All right. Let me come back to you. How do we address the issue of culture? Because from what Heba is saying, there seem to be some sort of cultural intrusions into Islam. How do we deal with it?
It's all a matter of education. In actual fact, it is not only within the Islamic or Muslim society that we have such misconceptions. Even in other non-Muslim tribes, when it comes to funerals, for instance, you have the widowhood right. Widowhood right actually is so terrible if you look at it from the cultural point of view. They would, require the widow to sit by the corpse for the whole period that it is laid in state. And then she has to change her dress. She has to put on only brisi. It's not the normal type of dress anybody would wear. Some coarse type of, cloth that she's compelled to wear. Then finally they take her to the river, and then they have certain rites. They even put pepper in her eyes. All these things happen, and it is not only in Muslim societies. We are talking about non-Muslim societies that these things happen. But then we don't attribute it to the religion of those people. Likewise, if there are certain things that certain Muslim societies have as their cultural practices, and they indulge in them, like our niece is telling us, then it doesn't follow that Islam should be blamed for it.
Right, Heba, let me come back to you again. You are a woman. What message do you have for Muslim women who are under the barrage of some of these problems, what should they do? Because they have come to believe, rather erroneously, that the second fiddle is their place.
Well, like Amir said, education is the key. We Muslim women ourselves need to read and educate ourselves very well. Then afterwards, we can educate the non-Muslims about the true teachings of Islam.
What is important about what she has said is, if the ladies are properly educated, they are going to educate their children. We are not talking only of the present generation. We are talking about the next and the coming generations. So when they are educated, that is why when you read the Holy Quran, God talks about the creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternation of night and day. He said there are signs for those who reflect. Here, God is not talking about reflection only by men. God is talking of reflection also by women. And so what Allah tells us from this verse in the Holy Quran is that we as a people, whether we are men or women, should try as much as we can to study nature, conquer it, harness it, and use it for the benefit of man. Right. And this is more to the woman than even to the man. Because after a child is born, the child clings to the woman, clings to the mother. If he wants to suckle, it's to the mother. Whatever problem the child has, it is the mother who tries to help. So because of the link, the close link between the child and the mother, if the mother is well educated, if the mother knows exactly what the Holy Quran says, if the mother knows what is good for mankind, and inculcates all these things into the child, it is then that the child is going to grow up to be equally learned and useful to society. So women has even more obligations, so far as I'm concerned, to learn and to be educated, sometimes more than the man.
Right. So, all right, you want to, yeah.
Amir Sab just said, Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, who is one of the wives of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was well versed in religious knowledge, but she did not end it there. She was engaged in various social, political, and educational activities, and she held a lot of leadership positions in there. And so, to Muslim women out there, she should be our role model, because she did a lot. And
right. Then when we talk of education, apart from the quotation from the Holy Quran, we have also the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam admonishing all Muslims. Talbul ilm faridatun ala kulli muslim wa muslima. The acquisition of knowledge is incumbent upon every Muslim, male or female. So here there's no discrimination that only men should be educated. But if you go to some of these societies, they will say that, well, what is the point in sending a woman to school? And so they will send only the men and leave the women. Right. Now, when you do that, you are not doing it because it is Islam that is saying so. You are doing it because you choose to do so against the teachings of Islam.
Right, Mr. We come look at that in detail, but we've been joined on the line by Shamima, a Muslim from Ghana. She is a journalist. Shamima, you welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Right, Shamima, you have, let me say, a double designation. You are a Muslim woman and a journalist, making your position in this matter very clear-cut. How do you feel as a Muslim woman, first, and secondly, as a journalist, when you realize that the perception that Muslim women should naturally play second fiddle to men, you hear such things around?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to share my thoughts on this very important platform. I have to also just take this opportunity to congratulate the producers of this program for bringing about this conversation, because the only way we can begin to deal with the very many misconceptions and perceptions about Islam, and especially the role of women in Islam, is to begin to have these conversations to expose to people what true Islam says, and where it comes to the role of the woman especially. And I've been listening to Amir Saib and Hiba, and they've raised a lot of the issues already, because if we first of all do not seek knowledge and insight into our own faith, then people would make us believe and feel that our faith really disempowers women. But if you truly understand what your faith says about women and the exalted position that Islam has given to especially the woman, you would be a very confident young Muslim woman in pursuit of knowledge, in pursuit of whatever it is that you believe you can do in your society. I believe also that as a journalist, especially in Ghana, it was not easy coming into the profession in the beginning because of the perceptions that women must not be heard or be seen, they must be covered all the time and all of that. But growing up in the kind of family that I grew up in, Islam Ahmadiyyat and the teachings that we've all been given, we know that education is very paramount and that the Quran enjoins Muslims to participate fully and actively in their society. And participating fully and actively does not only mean participating fully and actively where your religious activities are concerned, because the society or the country that we all live in is made up of politics. There's the economic sphere as well, there's the social sphere, and there's a spiritual sphere as well. So we are expected to participate in all of these spheres in our communities, in our country, so we can also contribute our quota towards uplifting, the society. So it is important that as Muslim women, especially young women who have not been prevented from exalting ourselves educationally, spiritually, that we serve as role models to other Muslim women by talking about it and giving ourselves as example, because I always believe that we have to start being living examples of what is possible or what is right.
We wish we could give you all the platform to talk because that is very interesting. But we will come back to have a second. I have a second question for you. So stay with us. Hiba, let me come back to you. You heard what Shamima just said. Now let's come to the issue of the veil. Others see the veil. The proponents of some of these unfortunate beliefs see the veil as a sort of encampment. How do you feel when you hear things like that?
It's a pity, people still say that. The problem is no one has come to me personally to ask me if I feel, encamped in the veil. The question, anytime I get this thing, the first thing that comes to mind is, why is it that Catholic nuns cover themselves and no one finds it, finds a problem with it? They think it's a religious norm. But when a Muslim woman covers herself, it becomes a problem. No. Speak to us and let's tell you how we feel.
Sometimes as conservative.
Yeah. That's not the situation.
Right,
we had Sir Muhammad Zafrullah Khan. He was the first foreign minister of Pakistan. Then later on, he was the chairman of the General Assembly of the UN. And he became the president of the International Court of Justice. He tells us that at the United Nations, sometimes we'll come across Africans. Then we'll come across people of other races. Then he sees that the African is well clad from top, to the toe. And then you find people of other countries almost half naked, going with, see-through dresses and so. Then he stands there and says, "Oh, poor African. When you went out without clothing, they said you were uncivilized. And now that you clothe yourself, they still say you are uncivilized." They want us to go stark naked before they will recognize us as people who are civilized. If we start aping people because we do not have any culture of our own, because we do not understand the dignity that is due us, then of course we'll be completely lost in the world. It doesn't.
Right. So let me pick the toss of Shamima once again. So Shamima, are you advocating more women, for instance, enter into politics, journalism, and other social spaces of importance, so that they can fight some of these misconceptions out there?
And I've said this somewhere, that nobody would fight our battles for us, and the battles that we only not fought within the four corners of our mosques. We have to fight it in the spaces that are available to us, and what I call the centers or levers of power. And we all know that as a secular society, our country is made up of politics, it's made up of the media, there's business, there's all of those things. And if we don't find ourselves in all of these very important spheres of influence in our society, who will tell our story for us? Nobody will tell our story for us. And, you know, there are challenges with sometimes Muslim women in journalism. Most of the radio and television stations will not allow you to cover yourself. Even, you know, some TV stations that have a Muslim management because of the secular nature of the society. Because they're looking at the bottom line, they're looking at the business, they're looking at the people who come and advertise on their various programs, and who may not advertise if all of a sudden there's a news reader who has covered herself and is reading news. So I'm also saying, where are our Islamic or Muslim businessmen who can sponsor programs that will allow the Muslim woman to express herself as her religion dictates that she should? Because these are the areas that will truly empower a lot of young Muslim women to see that they can also do it. If you pass up that opportunity to be a good journalist, to be on TV, what Muslim women who hitherto thought that education has no importance for them, but they see you and you're doing a good job, and they are inspired to take their studies seriously. I tell you, you would by that single action be empowering more Muslim lives than if you're not on that television or that radio station in the first instance.
Right, Shamima, we do want to thank you very much for that insightful contribution. So, Mr. Abe, we don't have much time, but let me briefly pick your thought. Where do we draw the balance between the work and the responsibilities of a Muslim woman in a secular state?
No, you see, what Adnis is saying is that we are not talking only of individual Muslim women. We must ensure that we have organizations for Muslim women within which they can make the highest possible progress, you know, materially, morally, as well as spiritually. Now, that is the type of organization we have had within the Ahmadiyya Muslim community for decades, 120 years. If you go to the headquarters of the community in Rabwa, we have 100% literacy for all the women who live in Rabwa. So that is what we aspire for every Ahmadi and every Lajna Imaila, you know, organization all over the world. When that happens, then of course among them will be teachers, doctors, engineers, journalists, and all the sort of disciplines that we have in the world. When we have that, it is then that people will then begin to realize that Islam has not actually relegated any woman to the background. Hiba had given us the example of Hazrat Aisha, radiallahu ta'ala anha, may Allah be pleased with her, who was well educated and would even educate men of the sort of things and experiences that she had about the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the other unfortunate thing is, the more Muslim women become educated, the more they feel that they should throw away the religion of Islam and do something else. You see, so when you do that, you are not helping the cause of Islam. The right thing is, the more educated you become as a Muslim, the more prominent you should understand yourself to be. And that being the case, you must be a role model for the other Muslims who are up and coming. But if you yourself are discarding Islam because of education that you have had, then what contribution have you made to the religion of Islam?
Right. Hiba, you would want to say your final word there before we go?
I would just want to emphasize on, just state something that Shamima said, that we need to do this on our own. We need to fight the battle to change that misconception out there that we are Muslim women especially, are second-class citizens. We are not. And we need to be confident about our teachings. Put on the veil, go out there and be yourself. And I believe with time, this whole thing would go away.
So that's how we end it on today's edition of Contemplation. We are back same time next week. We've been talking about the role of women in Islam, and with me the Amir and missionary in charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission in Ghana, Molvi Dr. Wahab Adam, and Hiba Araba Said, who is a research assistant from the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research in Ghana. So till we meet same time next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu.